So let me introduce to you our wonderful Samantha Fitzgerald. Samantha is an attorney in plantation, and her firm is 100% focused on estate planning, probate, and trust administration. She has been practicing for over 20 years, and she has her CPA and has an LLM in tax. Welcome, Samantha.
Thanks, Bianca. Appreciate it. Welcome,
You're
everyone.
Yeah, and let me just tell you about myself here. My name is Bianca Moreras. I'll be your host and moderator for today. I am a business development and career transition consultant and coach. I bring over 38 years of experience to the table with concentration in law firms and working with attorneys with the ability to help any company get to the next level. So without further ado, we have an amazing topic today. We're talking about intestate. And Sam, what is intestate?
What a weird word, right? Nobody knows what
Yes.
it means. So when someone dies, so everybody, you're in one of two categories. You either die testate or you die intestate. And intestate means you die without a will. Testate means you died having a will in place. So that's it.
Wow, I thought it was going to be this long drawn out thing. My goodness, I should have looked it up myself. Okay. So if I die intestate, does the government get all of my assets?
Typically, the answer is no, only under some very rare circumstances, but no. So if you die without a will, it's not the best thing to have happen. Everybody should have some estate planning documents in place. But if you die without a will, then your probate assets only are going to pass under the intestacy laws, and they're going to pass to certain people based upon where you live. So every state is different and has different rules and laws. So in Florida, we have our set of intestacy laws that will be followed.
Okay, well, what if I'm married and when I die, I have no children? Who gets my estate?
If you're married and you have no children, then your spouse gets 100% of your probate assets. So I should clarify that these intestacy rules only apply and control your assets that have to pass through a probate administration. And probate is a court procedure that transfers your assets to your beneficiaries upon your death. Only certain assets have to go through the probate process. Not everything does. So financial accounts that list a beneficiary that survives you, like whether it's a checking, savings, brokerage, life insurance, retirement, anything like that, if it has a beneficiary and the beneficiary is still alive, that passes directly to that beneficiary, does not go through probate. If you own an asset jointly with somebody with a right of survivorship, it passes to the joint owner. So a quick example is you own a piece of real estate with somebody and your two names are on it. You're not married. Bob and Sue own a property. If it doesn't say anything else, they don't own it with a right of survivorship, and each of their shares would go through a probate upon their death. If they own it, Bob and Sue, joint tenants with right of survivorship, it passes to the surviving owner outside of probate. So then these rules don't apply to that. Or if you had a trust and your asset was titled in your trust, it passes according to the terms of the trust. It does not go through probate, and it doesn't pass according to the intestacy rules. So we're only talking today about assets that have to go through probate, and you have no will.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so we talked about no children. What if I'm married and I die? But not only do I have children with my husband, I have children from a prior marriage. What happens?
So under that scenario, your children get half and your spouse gets half.
All the children, whether they're from my first marriage or from this marriage?
That's a great question. Somebody in my office just asked me that yesterday. So yes. So maybe you have, 3 kids with the current spouse and 1 child from a different relationship. So you have 4 kids. Those 4 kids share in half, and then your spouse gets half.
Okay. Okay. So if I'm married, but my spouse isn't on the title of my house, what happens when I die?
So it depends if you have children or not. If you don't have children, your spouse gets 100% of the house, of the property. If you do have children, whether they're within that marriage or outside of the marriage, the spouse automatically gets a life estate with the remainder to the kids, which means the spouse can live there for the rest of his or her life. Upon their death, the kids get the balance of the title, so they get the house. Or the spouse has an option to make an election within 6 months of death to take a 50% interest in the house, and then the kids immediately get a 50% interest in the house. And this rule applies even if all of your children are with that one spouse. So me and my husband, we have 2 kids. Neither one of us have kids from outside of the marriage. If the house is only titled in my name and I die, the house does not go to my husband. He gets a life estate with the remainder to the kids, or he can make that election. So he and my 2 minor children are going to own the house 50-50. So his house, what he thought was his house, that even if we bought it during the marriage with his money, but my name is the one on title, it does not go to him 100%.
Wow. Wow.
That really
So,
catches people off guard. People are shocked about that result. And it's really common, I'll tell you, especially as people are getting married older in life. So a lot of times, you buy a home, a condo, a townhouse, a regular house, whatever. You buy a home on your own, and then you get married, and your new spouse moves in, and maybe they sell theirs or they rent out theirs, right? So they're just not on title, and you just don't think about it. It happens all the time.
wow. Wow, so many things to think about, Samantha. Thanks for letting us know this. Well, like myself, I'm in a second marriage. And so we both agree that what's mine is mine and what his is his. Is there a problem with that?
Yes, there is. So if you don't have the proper documentation to support that, then Florida law is going to control. So for one, you have that homestead issue. So, if the house is in your name, it doesn't matter. The default without doing anything is that life estate. That's going to happen no matter what. Then the spouse also has another option to take what's called an elective share. And today we're not necessarily talking about spousal rights, but I get a lot of people that come to me to do estate planning, and just the one spouse is coming, and they say, I'm doing my estate planning, and my husband and I have agreed, we each have kids. It's just, later marriage, we're each keeping our own stuff and leaving our own stuff to our respective kids. Well, you got that problem with the homestead, but then there's this elective share where the surviving spouse can upset the plan and take 30% of everything that you own at death, for the most part, whether it goes through probate or not. So they can really upset the apple cart, and you won't know that, until, well, you'll never know it because you'll be dead, but
Well, I think our next topic has to be about spouses because I'm curious now, okay? It might affect me. So does a prenup change any of this?
Yes, absolutely. So pretty much any prenup that you see is going to have your standard marital waivers, which is going to waive homestead rights and elective share rights and the right to serve as personal representative in a probate administration, because that's kind of the person that controls everything. So all those rights can be waived, and it's really standard to waive them in a prenup or a postnup.
Okay, well, so that's a good thing, but the thing is getting them to sign it, of course. So that's a different story, right? What happens if I die and I have no spouse or children? Who gets the estate?
No spouse, no children. So then it depends on who survives you. So if your parents survive you, it goes to them first. If your parents didn't, and if only one survives, 100% will go to that parent. If none of your parents survive you, then it first goes to your siblings and children of deceased siblings, so nieces, nephews, and that can start spreading out quickly, trust me. After that, then it's going to go up to each side of your grandparents and then start coming down. So it would go out to, assuming your grandparents, aren't still alive, it would then go out to the siblings of your parents and then down. So your cousins and whatnot.
Wow. That does sound quite complicated. You need to be prepared. What if I die with no family at all? I'm an orphan.
Okay. So it's very rare because, as you can see, it really goes out to a lot of people. But occasionally, we've seen that. Very, very, very rare. But with small families, it happens as everybody gets older, because you may have had family, but everybody's dead, at this point. So if you were ever married, at the time of, either of, well, let's say you were married and your spouse died, and then you died. So if there's nobody on your line, it jumps over to your last spouse and to all of their intestate heirs. So it goes through a lot of people. If you were married, if you weren't married, then you lose all of that. But so it does all that first. And if you truly don't have any of that, that's when it escheats to the state of Florida.
Wow. And what do they do with it? They just like spend it themselves? I mean, I don't know.
It goes into a fund that I forgot. I looked recently. I think it either like supports education, allegedly, or something
Allegedly.
like that, where it sits in this fund, and they use the money, for.
Okay, wow, that's so interesting. Well, I have two half siblings. What happens with that? Like,
Sounds, they get a half of a share.
oh, okay.
Now, if the one
Interesting.
you had were half siblings, they would each get a full share, of course. But if you have a
Got
half
it.
full, they get a half.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Well, what if, oh, I'm sorry. What if a baby is not born yet? You're pregnant and not born yet. What happens with that?
They are counted as long as they have been conceived before your death.
Oh my gosh. Got to get out that little calculator and calendar. Oh my goodness. That could be very complicated. Wow. My mom died leaving two surviving children, and one child that predeceased her, who has four children. What happens to mom's estate?
So that's what we call, in a sense, per stirpes. So Florida law, the descent is per stirpes, meaning that it goes down the line to the next level. So the child that predeceased mom, their children step in the shoes. So if mom had two kids, it's 50-50. Then the children of that deceased child, the four kids, they share the 50% interest. So this can be very problematic. Oftentimes we get somebody in here and the decedent has been dead for a little while, maybe a couple of years, sometimes longer. By that point, lots of people have died. So lots of beneficiaries have died. And as long as you survive the decedents, you're entitled to something. So I should back up. I shouldn't say it automatically goes to those people, but it will first go to, oh, I'm sorry, in that example, that child predeceased mom, right? Yes, so that was all correct. But let's say that child even survives mom, but then dies, because nobody probated mom's estate for a couple of years. Then it goes to their estate and then to whoever their heirs are. So when you wait to probate somebody's estate, there's no rule that says you have to probate an estate within any period of time. Nobody has any obligation to even bring the probate forward. But when you do, if you choose to wait for a while, people start dying. The beneficiaries start dying. And that doesn't mean that they're just cut out. It just complicates the process a lot.
Wow. It sounds complicated. I'm glad you do this and not me. What happens if I don't know how to find an intestate heir?
Too bad. So sad. You need to find them.
So no proceeding could finalize until you find them?
It depends what kind of proceeding it is, and how difficult it is to find them, but they're still entitled to their share. So they're still entitled to notice. They're entitled to their share. Again, it depends on what the assets are and how the type of proceeding, and there's some sort of, like publication notice requirements, but for the most part, you need to look for them. It's not just okay to say, I'm just not sure where they live. We hear that a lot from people, because, they're not close with somebody. They don't know where they are. Well, you got to make some attempt at finding them. So, get comfortable with Google, start looking, hire a private investigator. You're going to have to do what you need to do to try to find them. And truly, if you literally cannot find them anywhere, then you have to look to the rules and go through whatever process there is. But just because you can't find them doesn't mean they're not entitled to their share of the estate.
Wow, yeah, that could be time consuming for sure. You got to stay close to your relatives, I guess. I don't know. Is there anything I can do aside from a prenup?
Yeah, so when we're talking about the death rights, as I call them, you can do a waiver of those rights you don't have to do a full-blown prenup, which oftentimes covers, purchases of property during the marriage and alimony and child support and stuff like that. So the waiver of death rights is a somewhat of a simple document that is just going to address the elective share, homestead rights, things like that you are entitled to, a spouse is entitled to upon somebody's death. So it's still something that you have to, negotiate in a sense and make sure that everybody understands what they're signing, and that they're not being forced or under duress to do so, but you don't have to do a full-blown prenup.
Okay. My dad's parental rights were terminated. Would he inherit from my estate if I die?
No. So when parental rights are terminated, it's as if they predeceased you and they're no longer your parent.
Wow. Okay. Boy, that's something to chew on. I'm not married. There's a question from a viewer here. I'm not married and have no children, but both of my parents are alive. I've been estranged from my mom for the last 20 years. Who inherits my estate?
Mom and dad. And we see that quite often as well, where somebody, usually they're on the younger side. They didn't expect to die, and they were estranged from a parent. The parent didn't raise them. I mean, we had this case not that long ago. It was a real shame. The stepdad raised these children their entire life, but the decedent didn't have a will. He died intestate. So his mom and then his natural father were the beneficiaries of the estate.
Wow.
And dad got a windfall.
Oh no. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that would, I hate to use the word, that would piss me off for sure.
You see, it's not what, people come in to do a probate and they say, but so-and-so has been estranged from the family, whether it's a parent or a sibling or, sorry, doesn't matter. That's why these documents can be very, very important to put into place.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And my boys are adopted. How does that affect them intestate succession? How would that affect them?
So adoption is interesting because it depends on why the adoption was done or by whom. So your traditional adoption, you're adopting from a third party, you're not related to the natural parent. It's as if you become the parent. So the adoptive parents are now the real parents of that child for both ways of intestate succession, up and down. You inheriting from the child inheriting from you, your parents, the grandparents, you're all an actual family as if you were the natural parents, biological parents. But if a child is adopted by a close relative because their parent died, like an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, they don't lose the right to inherit from that line of family. They get both.
Wow. So that could be a windfall.
Yeah. So they're not, put at a disadvantage because their parent died and then a family member stepped in and adopted them.
I will say that I just finally finished my trust with Samantha, and I'm sleeping so much better at night. I can't even tell you, because it was a big process, because when you work so hard your whole life, you don't realize all the little things. Like she asks you questions, you're like, oh, I didn't know I had to do that, you know? So she's very thorough, and I really appreciate putting my head on the pillow at night now, not worrying, God forbid something happens to myself or my husband. So I learned so much, and I always continue to. Any last words from you, Sam?
No, thank you for coming. It was exciting. I always get excited about these topics, and I love sharing the knowledge and the information and educating people, because these are things that, people either don't understand or they have a misconception, in their mind. They think something's one way and it really has a different and devastating outcome sometimes. So these are exciting. And if you've missed any of our past Zoominars, we record them all. We blur out everybody's faces and we post them to our YouTube page. So you can find that from our website. The top right corner is the link to our website, to the YouTube.
Someone is just coming in now.
Oh,
But yeah, so the YouTube information is fantastic. I point people that way all the time. And it's really amazing some of the questions that I get asked, that people just come to me because they know I know so many attorneys. And it's really amazing when I say, oh, just call Sam. It does call Samantha, because that is not in my wheelhouse. So like I said, thank you so much, Samantha. The educational part of this is amazing. As always, anybody on the call, you're more than welcome to call Samantha's office, and you will get the attorney, Samantha Fitzgerald, to speak to you, although she has a fabulous staff. It's an all-woman owned company, which I know you appreciate. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And we are here the third Friday of every single month from noon to 12:30, bringing you the amazing Samantha Fitzgerald, who is full of wealth and knowledge and is just a wonderful human being to work with. So until next time, everybody have an awesome weekend, and we'll see you next month on April 15th. Oh,
thank
tax
you.
day. You're
Oh,
welcome. Yes.
Thank you very much. And we're having a singles mingle on April 14th, the day before, from 6 to 8. So if you know any single people, send them our way, because we're going to have a lot of fun, and hopefully we're going to make a love connection. So it's very exciting. Very exciting.
Well, I may just have to show up to spy.
Bye. Take care.
Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.